Welcome back to the West Georgia Gridiron Podcast. I'm your host, Mason Taylor. We're in a new setup. I like this setup. It's more intimate. I know, obviously, my dad's not in this shot. He's not going to, for the foreseeable future, kind of be in this. He's going to be more in a production role. But I like this. I don't know about y'all. I got my Gainesville cup here. It's special to me because it reminds me of good times over there in Gainesville. Put a beating on them last year. I'm not going to get into that. But it's crazy to think that we're already in the 2026 season. Like, we're already starting. This has been an abnormally long off season for me. It's felt like, ever since the end of the state championship, I've been chomping at the bits to get back. And so, I've just been really ready. I know a lot of people are very ready. The scrimmages have really gotten me going. I'm going to try and keep this intro a little bit short because we do have 7 games we got to talk about here. Usually we have bye weeks throughout the season, so there are some teams we usually aren't talking about, but we have a full slate to get into today. And it's hard to think that like a year ago this time we were starting the podcast. So it's crazy that we're in season 2 of this. I'm very excited. I feel like when we're doing the show, I get to fully be in my element. But yeah, a lot of new coaches, a lot of new players, a lot of reclassification, which brings me to my next point. If you haven't watched the 3 summer episodes, what the heck? I highly recommend it. We talked about reclassification. We talked about returning players. We talked about the schedule. So if you haven't watched those, go back and watch them. I highly recommend them. But without further ado, we're going to get started here. I'm going to go out of order. We're going to start off with the Wildcats from Villa Rica, though. They're in 5A this year again. We kind of expected them to move up to 6A, but they're staying in 5A, and they're going to be hosting Week 1 Alexander from Douglasville, a team who's been in their region for the last 2 years. They're now in 6A, though. Last year, Villa Rica hosted them, beat them 27-6. Villa Rica leads the series all-time 9-3. Alexander hasn't beaten Villa Rica in 11 years, and Villa Rica, obviously the last 2 years, has beaten Alexander. Villa Rica, this was a game last year. They were up 14-0 at halftime. And so when you look at this game this year, it's definitely not a game. I definitely could see that being a possibility, but I don't think that'll be, I don't think it'll be a scoreless first half for either of these teams. When I looked at Alexander, Aiden Abdullah Tolson, senior defensive back for Alexander, he's really stood out to me. I think he's definitely somebody that, he's a Liberty commit, so he's not like he's under the radar, but I kind of feel like he is. You also have Jordan Parks, a junior playing receiver, tight end, 6'5", definitely going to be a guy to watch in this game. But Alexander was definitely a team that's needed improvement. I mean, when you look at the last 2 years, there's been nothing about this Alexander team that has been exciting, that has been like, oh yeah, they can compete for a region title. So, they're very ordinary in a lot of senses. And for Villa Rica, you kind of look at this and you go, well, you kind of expect what happened last year and the year before that to happen this year as well. But I'm not real sure about that. For Villa Rica, you got Matthew Eubanks at the helm this year in his second year starting. You have Emmanuel Ajayi at running back, who I've been very impressed with. Tamaj Beasley, up-and-coming sophomore, and the list goes on. But they're going to be going up against guys like Jaquan Sutton and Jack Gable and Jordan Parks, Aiden Abdullah Tolson, etc. One thing I will point out, though, that I think is going to be one key part, when you look at Alexander last year, I believe they had like 3 or 4 sacks in this game. But Alexavier McDonald's gone. He transferred to Douglas County. Brandon Shannon's gone. He transferred to Douglas County. Those are 2 key pieces in that front 7 for Alexander last year. And them being gone, that's, some big shoes to fill for Alexander. It's very unfortunate for them. But my keys to victory for both of these teams in this game, I think are pretty much the same thing. I think for both of these teams, they're going to need to stay balanced, and they're going to need to force the defenses to stay honest. I think if Alexander or Villa Rica, I think either one, if they're able to kind of just know what you're going to do or force your hand a little bit, I think that neither of those teams will be successful. For Villa Rica specifically, though, again, you do not want it to be a game where you don't have options. And it's the same thing for Alexander. You want to be able to have your options. This is a game that I think will be extremely close. I know that there are some people that don't think that. Obviously, 27-6 last year, that's a 3-score game. This year, though, I'm not sure about that. I think that Villa Rica with a new head coach, I like Coach Hilbert, but again, there's some uncertainty with that. Obviously, 2 new coordinators, Coach Barge coming from Carrollton, Coach Dick stepping up from the D-line to DC. So there's a lot of there's a lot of question marks. Obviously, they had a very good performance on the road against Noonan in that scrimmage, but there's still a lot of question marks for me. And Alexander beat Stars Mill by 3 at home in a scrimmage. Again, I don't know what kind of Stars Mill team they're going to have this year. 3 years ago, they were really good. Last year, not so much. So I don't know what to think about that. And again, with scrimmages, you got to take it with a grain of salt. But this one I think will be rather close, especially, with it being at Villa Rica. I think Villa Rica will have the advantage here. And I'm going to say it's a Villa Rica victory, 24-21. Again, I could definitely see both of these teams winning in multiple different ways. I think both of these teams will be able to stay balanced. I don't think either of these defenses are good enough to kind of force each other's hands, or I don't think that they will. So that's kind of where I'm sitting at with that prediction. So again, Villa Rica 24-21, starting off this 2026 season strong and in the win column. That's my prediction for that one. So we'll get into Temple now. Temple, again, a lot of uncertainty. They're in 3A this year, so they go from 1A to 3A. They have a new head coach, and they're going on the road week 1 to a 6A team in Osborne up in Marietta. These two teams have never played each other, so this is a first. One of the key players for Osborne is Javon May. He has a Division III offer, plays receiver and corner. Outside of him, nothing really to get excited about for Osborne. Again, just like Alexander, a team that's, another face in the crowd. Nothing to really get excited about. They did have a really good offensive lineman, Cameron Wilkes. Unfortunately, though, he transferred out, I believe, to Jones County. For Temple, I love Temple. But again, nothing to really get excited about, in my opinion. Not a whole lot. I think they've still got to prove themselves. And you got JoJo Jones. You got a lot of good guys, Brian Bowman, Preston Griffin, Devin Tanner. The list goes on. But again, that scrimmage against Mount Zion, I believe they lost 14-0 at home. And I know they're going to spread offense this year, which I actually like. I think I prefer that over a more traditional, just run-heavy offense that Temple's had. But for Osborne, I think this one, they just got to stay balanced. They had to come back and beat Woodland Cartersville in their scrimmage, I believe 33-21. And for Osborne, I think, just don't go and do too much. You're at home. You got more depth. And at the end of the day, I think as long as they just go out there and execute on both sides of the ball, they'll be fine. I think Temple is the one that's going to have to come out there and win the game. Temple has to, in my opinion, I think the biggest thing here is you got to protect the quarterback and be able to attack through the air. Brody Dempsey's a first-year starting quarterback. He's got some good size at 6'2", but he's a first-year starting quarterback. And again, when you're getting shut out by Mount Zion in a scrimmage, I know, again, it's still a scrimmage, but, there's a lot of question marks there. And you have tons of weapons around you. Isaiah Montgomery, Brian Bowman, JoJo Jones, Devin Tanner, Preston Griffin. I mean, you have a lot of weapons around you. You have a decent offensive line as well. But I'm going to need to see something. I'm going to need those questions answered this year, and specifically in this game. And I think, with the kind of region Temple's in, this is not a region that you're going to be able to just rely on JoJo Jones. Last year, if you remember, they were 4-0 starting off the season. It just seemed like it was really JoJo Jones carrying them to those wins. And, again, you can only do that for so long. So this is a team that, again, is going to have to be able to move the ball through the air as well as on the ground. And I think if Temple can do that, then they have a great chance of winning. But again, Osborne has more depth because they're just a bigger school, a larger team, and they're at home. So unfortunately, and again, with a new head coach, there's a lot of questions I think Temple still has to answer. I'm going to take Osborne in this one, 24-14, only a 10-point victory. I would love nothing more than Temple to go on the road and get a win week 1. But there's still questions on the board for me. And that's the reason that I'm making that decision. Next one, we'll talk about a team in that region with Temple, Haralson County. Now, I got to go to the Haralson County scrimmage up there in Kings Ridge, up there in Alpharetta. Haralson County, to me, they didn't look overly good, but they didn't look like bad either. Like, they looked good, okay? It was 21-0, I think, when the varsity got pulled. And, again, they're going on the road week 1, across the border to Sardis high school in Alabama. That's in Etowah County, I believe. They're a 4A school there in Alabama. Obviously, 4A Alabama is smaller than 4A Georgia. But to me, again, this is a matchup that's never been played before. Coach Crutchfield talked about how this matchup kind of got set up at Media Day. Again, if you didn't watch that, I highly recommend maybe going back and watching that if you can. But to me, after watching that scrimmage and after knowing this Haralson County team, there's one thing that I think is going to really help this Haralson County team win, and that is Kemp Boyd. Number one, when you're 6'3", 195, that's already, you got peak size to do a lot of different things. When you're a wide receiver, a running back, a defensive back, and you can do kick and punt returning, you literally can affect the game in all three phases. And we saw that in the scrimmage. Had an interception, had multiple rushing touchdowns. Also, if they would have done kickoffs, probably would have had a kickoff return touchdown. And Kemp Boyd, again, I think for Sardis, you got to stop them. I think if you can't stop them, it doesn't matter what they do. Sardis won't win that game. And I think on the contrary, again, Haralson County, you want to win the game, Kemp Boyd's going to have to you got to let him dominate. You got to let him create something out of nothing in a sense. And I'm not saying that Haralson County doesn't have other weapons, because they do. I mean, you look at Dawson Aldridge, number 12, defensively, he's a beast. I mean, he was tackled in the open field. It was incredible. You have Joel McCoy. You have so many other playmakers on that team. But for me, Kemp Boyd, I think if you let him do what he can do, what he showed in that scrimmage, I mean, I don't think Sardis will have an answer. And if they don't have an answer, well, then we got our answer there on who's going to win. So for me, I think Haralson County goes on the road, starts off the season strong. Definitely not a team that I think is going to be 1-9 anytime soon, especially with Crutchfield as the head coach. I think they start off the season strong with a 35-14 victory on the road, 3-score victory. Again, Kemp Boyd, I think he's just going to have a big season this year, and I'm kind of surprised he doesn't have more college offers than he has. But this is a game where Sardis, the question is, okay, if you can shut Kemp Boyd down, that's the first question. And then if you can Haralson County find another way to win, and are you going to be able to shut that down? Because I guarantee you Haralson County will have other guys to win the game. So that's my prediction for Haralson County, 35-14. We'll move on to Mount Zion now, another team that I got a lot of questions for, especially after the departure of Knox Israel, their quarterback, also played linebacker. Very big part of their offense last season, throwing and running the ball. He's gone. He transferred. Now Brody Heinzman, the junior, who's playing linebacker, is going to be stepping up as the quarterback. And we saw in that scrimmage against Mount Zion, against Temple on the road, they won 14-0. But then they went on the road to Cleburne County, Alabama. I don't think Brody Heinzman played in that one. They lost 28-7. So we've kind of seen the best of both worlds from Mount Zion in these scrimmages. But they're going to be hosting Calvary Christian from Columbus. They're a GIAA school. They play in 4A there. GIAA is what like Oak Mountain plays in. And I'm not saying that a GIAA can't beat a GHSA, because we've seen it in the past. But definitely I think Mount Zion has the advantage just being in the GHSA. Now, this is a first-time matchup for these two teams. Again, for Mount Zion, if Brody Heinzman can play, he will be a key part of that team. Again, Jordan Smith, Keziah Aki, Omarion Dallas, these are kind of the guys that are going to be impactful not only in this game but in the whole season. Mount Zion in 2A this year. But when I look at Calvary Christian, you look at some of their top players. Their quarterback has 5 offers, 2 of them Division III. They have Jakari Harris, who's a young sophomore. He's got 2 Division I offers. You have Sawyer Talbot, who has an offer at receiver. You got Jeffrey Brzezinski, who Mount Zion is familiar with because he was at Chattahoochee County, who they've played the last 2 years. Big 6'6", 310 offensive lineman. Now he's at Calvary Christian. So this is a game, again, Mount Zion hosts. Again, there's a little bit of questions from both of those scrimmages on how Mount Zion will do. I think, though, the key matchup here is Calvary Christian's passing attack versus Mount Zion's secondary. I think that's where the game will be won. Obviously, if Braxton Wilkinson, who's the quarterback for Calvary Christian, obviously if they're able to go out there and just throw it, and, I mean, there's no answer to it, it's going to be a long night for Mount Zion, even if it's at home and even if they're a GIAA team. On the contrary, though, I think if you force them to have to run the ball, their running back transferred to Carver Columbus, they being Calvary Christian. So I don't even know what kind of running game they have this year. They've already had the luxury of having one game. They beat Bethlehem Christian last week, I believe 23-14. So they'd have that. But again, I think if they can stop the pass, then Mount Zion will have it in the bag. I think they're not going to be able to run against Mount Zion. And I think Mount Zion will have a good enough offense to score. And that's why I'm going to pick Mount Zion in this one. At home, I definitely could see Calvary winning this game, though. I don't want to get it twisted. I definitely can see Calvary pulling what you could call an upset in a sense. But Mount Zion, again, I have them 31-17, so that's a 2-score victory. But again, I could definitely see that score going for Calvary Christian. This one is, I wouldn't say a true toss-up, but one that I think could go either way. But I'm going to go with Mount Zion at home. Their GHSA team, and, I'm not going to pick against, somebody from around here week one unless I feel like there's really some serious questions. And I don't feel like there's some serious questions with Mount Zion. So that's my prediction for Mount Zion, 31-17. Moving on, now we're getting into the top 3 games for this week. This is real deal right here. We have the number 5 team from 5A, the Central Lions. They will be going down to Franklin to take on the number 1 team in 2A heading into the season, Heard County. Now, these two teams did not play last year. The last 2 years, they've scrimmaged against each other, but they have not played each other since 2021, which is a 15-point Central victory. Central leads this series all-time 7-3. The last time Heard beat Central was back in 2018, the same year that they ended up winning state. I believe it was like a 45-0 victory, but that was 8 years ago. So it's been a minute since Heard County's tasted victory against the Lions. And to me, this is, this stretch for both Central and Heard, they have 2 stretches. I believe I said in that schedule episode, I said there would be 2 stretches for both these teams that are season defining for them. And number 1 for Central was weeks, 1 through 5 or something like that. Same thing for Heard. So this is an important game, a very important game, basically to see where these teams are at starting off in the year. Because there are some people that think this is going to be a total Central domination. And then there's some people that think that Heard will be able to keep it in there and stick in there and maybe even win. So I've seen both ends of the spectrum in the predictions here. Obviously, Central has one of the best quarterbacks in the state, but so does Heard County. I will say, though, I do think that Central has one of the best head coaches in the whole state, Umbre Brown. But when you look at these rosters, again, for Heard, it's very offensive dominated. Dooney Coleman, Zay Moreland, Ethan Tisdale, Brody Cofield, Trip Kerbo, Tatum White, who's more of a D lineman but plays O-line. So it's a more offensively gifted roster, I would say. For Central, Jake Ivester, Brock Roberts, J.R. Harris, Cannon Jones, Sam Walker, Jace Walton. These are kind of your top players. And I think for Heard County, again, for both of these teams, we'll start off with Heard. You got to be able to move the chains through the air. Neither of these teams, I think, are going to just solely be able to run the ball the whole time. Obviously, I think Central will have a better time doing that because they have Jace Walton at running back and they have a bigger, more experienced offensive line. But again, for Central, I think what you're going to want to do is find the answer early and often. And I think the answer is through the air. And I think if you're just able to use J.R. Harris and your receivers to just drop bomb after bomb after bomb into the end zone, well, then obviously Heard's never going to be able to recover, right? I mean, you get out to a hot start and that's it. Same thing for Heard, though. To stay in the game, I feel like you're going to have to be able to do more than run the ball with Darius Coleman. We saw them in the scrimmage against LaGrange. Running the ball was all right, but when they started getting things going, it's because they were throwing the ball and they were doing well at it. And when you have one of the best quarterbacks in the state who's going to Memphis and you have some receivers who I think are highly underrated, your chances of being able to do that increase. And again, this one I think is very evenly matched up in many ways. I think with Central, they're young in their receiver room. Outside of Jake Ivester, a lot of these guys are either underclassmen or they haven't played or started. Heard County, though, their secondary is very young too. They're very inexperienced. Their front seven, they have a lot of inexperience in general. So again, who can move the chains through the air? And the team that does that better is the team that I think is going to win the game. And so I think it's going to be Central. I think this one will be close. I don't see it being a blowout. I think Heard County is good enough to keep it respectable. So again, I think that the team that's going to be able to move the chains through the air is going to be the team that's successful. Whoever does that better is going to win the game. And I think it's going to be Central. I don't think this will be a game that Central's going to, dominate, because I think Heard County has a good enough team. Again, when you come in ranked number 1 in 2A, obviously they're ranked number 1 in 2A for a reason. And I don't think that, if LaGrange isn't going to blow them out in a scrimmage, there's nothing that's going to make me think that Central's going to blow them out either. Heard County, to me, is a team that is good enough to keep it respectable. But Central, even despite being on the road, is a good enough team to get the win. I'll say Central 31-17. That's a 2-score victory. Again, I'm not going to say who has a better quarterback, because I'm not trying to, I don't even want to get into that, because that'll make a lot of people mad. But both of these quarterbacks are some of the best in the state, and this is a matchup that you can't take for granted. I mean, despite if your team wins or loses, this is a game that you just want to look back on, and you just hope it's a great game that you can always look back on, and it's a classic. But I do think Central will win this one. So Central 31-17 is my prediction. Second to last game we'll talk about, Bowdon at Bremen. I mean, it's Bowdon-Bremen hate week. Number 2 Bowdon, that's what they're ranked heading into the season according to the AJC in 1A. Bremen, they're in 2A. Bowdon beat them last year 48-7 at home. That's a 41-point victory. They lead the series 50-29. Bremen has not beaten Bowdon since 2020, and they've played every single year, so Bowdon's won the last 5 matchups. Last year, Bowdon was up 28-7 at half. I don't even think Bowdon scores 28 points this year. So that's kind of the tone that I'm trying to set. That was a game that they got off to a hot start and never looked back. This year, I just think is totally different. And I think if you were to look at the outcome last year and base it on that, you wouldn't agree with me. You'd probably be like, what are you talking about? But this year, I just think it's just a whole nother deal. Now, again, for Bowdon, this 4-game stretch, this first 4 games of the season for them is going to tell a lot. How they do against Bremen and the 3 teams that they play after is going to tell a lot about, is this team still championship caliber? So this is an important game. For Bremen, key players include Eli Brock, Thacker Dudley. Obviously, there's more, but I don't want to keep going on with the list. Bowdon, you got Josh Chandler, Micah Patterson, Connor Daniel, and Lucky Bailey. Again, many more to talk about, but that would be a very long list. A lot of people think this is going to be a very close game, and I agree with them. There are some people, though, that don't think it's going to be quite as close, like a comfortable 2-3 score victory for Bowdon, and I can see that. But then there's also people that think Bremen's going to win, and that's where I draw the line. And I know that's going to ruffle up some feathers, but that's just where I draw the line. I'm like, okay, well, let's not get too crazy. And I'm just kidding. But, for Bowdon, again, yes, you lost Finley, but you have Jamie Abrams. And if, you're not familiar with Jamie Abrams, look at what he did at Cedartown. And, when you look at his track record there's nothing that makes me think that he can't get it done in 1A. If he was doing it in 4-5A, what makes you think he can't do it with Bowdon? I know they graduated a lot of seniors, but even despite all that, he's still one of the best coaches in the whole state. So this idea that Bowdon's still not in it to win it, to me, is crazy. I think we're going a little too far on that. But I'll also say Bremen's definitely not the same Bremen as the last few years. I'll go ahead and say that. They're a very senior heavy class. They got a new OC. They got a new DC. There's a lot of new, which there's a lot of hype behind them as well. I'd be lying if I said there wasn't. But to me, again, we have to look at, I think, 2 things. Number 1 is experience. Yes, Bremen has more experience in terms of they have more seniors on their team. But at the same time, you have to realize Bremen has seniors that don't know what it's like to make it out the first, second round of the playoffs. Maybe not even out the first round. That's what their experience is, okay? Bowdon has less experience in terms of age, in terms of quantity, but those guys on the whole team know what it's like to be in a championship culture, on a championship winning team, or even playing in the game of the state championship. So to me, that's more valuable than having more seniors. That's more valuable to me. They know what it's like when the pressure's on. You have to go down to Clinch County, and everyone's saying Clinch County is going to beat you. They know what it's like to go down there all the way almost to Florida and beat them 45-6 in the semifinal. Like, that's the kind of pressure they are up against. And they know what it's like to get past that. Now, again, I know Prothrow's not there. Everyone freaks out that he's not there. Like, again, I know he had a lot of production, and he's arguably one of the greatest statistically receivers that we've ever seen in high school football, at least in Georgia. But again, there's nothing that makes me think that Bowdon's still can't win a state title. Like, the question would be like, okay, outside of Finley and Prothrow, like what other thing is there to say that they aren't gonna win state or compete for state? So this one, that's number one. Number two, I would say Bowdon has to stay balanced. Bowdon, to me, doesn't even need to do a lot. They don't need to go out there and do too much. They don't need to go out there and be fancy on either side of the ball. They don't need to really dominate, to me. I would like for them to dominate, and I think all the Bowdon people would too, but they don't need to. I don't feel like, because I feel like they're just the superior team anyway. Superior coaching and superior players. But for Bremen, they are going to have to play fantastically on offense, okay? I know we've looked at these two scrimmages against Rockmart when they shut them out 10-0, and they shut out Harris County 28-0, and I'm not trying to discredit them at all. It's a scrimmage. Scrimmages mean very, very little. You have to take them with a grain of salt. I still think that Bremen's a different team than last year, and I still think they'll be better. But we have to be realistic. Like, yeah, they beat Rockmart 10-0, but like Bowdon's not Rockmart, and this is a real game. I do think Bremen being at home is going to help them out a lot. But again, to me, there's nothing that, like, again, what makes you want to pick against Bowdon? Because Bowdon hasn't played a real game since the state title game. So you can't base it off of a real game. I would strongly advise you from basing it on padded camps or OTAs or 7-on-7s or scrimmages. I would highly advise you not to base it on that. And again, yes, you could look at production they lost, but I just think that simply the fact that Coach Abrams is their head coach kind of negates all of that, if we're being honest. Because I think when it comes down to it and you go, okay, well, Bremen has the players that can compete. Well, then I'm going to look at who can outcoach who. And if we're being honest, I think Abrams will outcoach Russell. That's how I feel about it. And it's not to discredit Russell, but Abrams has been to the state championship game. I think Russell's been to one quarterfinal, and then in like the other 10 years, he's made it to the first or second round and nothing past it. So, I'm not trying to make him look bad, but I'm just stating the facts. So again, for Bremen, they have to come out and play really good offense, and they have great offensive weapons. Their quarterback, their running back, you have Kenyon Carter, you have a decent offensive line, you have many other weapons you can throw to. And again, this is an offense that, like Temple, is getting away from running the ball heavily. They're still going to run the ball, but this is a team that you're going to see Eli Brock actually throwing the ball a lot more, which I'm actually happy for. But Bowdon, again, even if they go back to Wing T, because I know Hochstetler is now their OC. He came from Temple. Abrams was successful with Wing T at Cedartown, I believe. So, like, again, it doesn't really matter to me. But Bremen, to win the game, I think to have the best chance of winning at least, they're going to have to play great offense, even say dominate on offense. And I don't think that Bowdon's defense is going to let them do that. And that's the reason why I'm going to say Bowdon's going to win this one, 21-17, a 4-point victory. I'm not saying it's not going to be close. I agree it's going to be close. But Bowdon, I think when it comes down to it, has better coaching, has the better experience, and they have a better defense, a more experienced defense in the key aspects. And that's why I'm going to pick them to win. So Bowdon 21-17. I wish that wasn't week one. I really wish that was like during one of Carrollton's bye weeks so I could go to it, but life's not fair, is it? So, but 21-17 is my prediction. Please, Bremen fans, don't come after me. If y'all win, it's deserving, but there's nothing that's going to make me pick against Bowdon, at least not right now. And I saved the best for last. I know that sounds biased, but I saved the best for last. Carrollton Rome. I think this is obviously, when you come down to it, none of these teams around here, maybe outside of Central, would be able to compete or beat Rome. I think that's just kind of the fact. So Carrollton Rome, in my opinion, this is my game of the week. And I know that's going to make Bremen Bowdon mad. I know that's going to make Central Herd mad. Don't really care. Carrollton Rome to me is the game of the week. Carrollton comes into 7A this year, ranked number 2. Obviously, lost their second state championship in a row, third in the last 4 years. But there's some hope this season, just like every season. For Rome, I can't say the same. They don't even come into 6A this year ranked in the top 10, even after making a semifinal last year. Carrollton, this was a game last year that Carrollton won 28-21. Outside of that game, the closest game that Carrollton had was in the state championship game, which was also 28-21, which they ended up losing. So kind of crazy that this was like their closest game. You know, when you look at other teams they play, like Gainesville, like that wasn't even close. Like Rome was the closest, so that's kind of weird. But Carrollton's 8-4 in this series all time, which is also kind of hard to believe because it feels like for a while we just got whooped all the time. But I will say in the last 5-6 years, this has been all Carrollton. I can't even remember. I think last time Rome beat Carrollton was Joey King's first year there in 2021. So it's been a while, and it's been all Carrollton for the last few years. Last year, Rome was up 7-0 at halftime. Again, very reminiscent kind of the state championship game. Carrollton was up 7-0 in the state championship game, ended up losing 28-21. This game, Rome was up 7-0, and they ended up losing 28-21. So kind of weird how that works. But again, for Carrollton, this is the start of the most important stretch of the season for me. I think from now until West Charlotte, that's an important, very important stretch to see what kind of Carrollton team they have this year. And so this is the start of it. We're going to see how they do on the road against Rome in Barron Stadium. I will say Rome has a lot of new, though, and not positive. Their quarterback, who was a 3-star going to Duke, transferred out. They had Justin Spivey, who used to go to Carrollton in middle school. He left to go to Douglas County, I guess because he likes getting beat by Carrollton. But anyways, and then they also had Bill Stewart, who is the DC at Rabun County for the last few years down there in 2A. He's also the former head coach at North Gwinnett, where he won their only state championship. He's going to be their head coach after Coach Reed retired. So that's kind of why, you know, when you look at this scrimmage and it was 21-0, they lost to North Paulding at home. That's why I think that this game ain't going to be, you know, a lot of people think that this is going to be a blowout, and it's hard to disagree with that. But I do think that Bill Stewart being their head coach is going to make it like where it's not like completely just terrible for Rome. And they have a freshman at quarterback, which is not in their best interest. They have some really good players. They have Jaquez McCrary on both lines, who's going to Georgia State. They have some other guys who are, you know, like Demarius Collins and Josh Reynolds, younger guys on that offensive line. They have some other guys that have like D2 interests. But really, this is a younger team and kind of undersized team in a lot of ways. And again, a lot of new coordinators, a new head coach. So when you're going up against a top 25 team in the nation who doesn't have a lot of coaching turnover, actually barely any, and a lot of their players are young but very, very good, it's tough to have to open up with. And, you know, for Rome, this is tough because I don't want to say it's going to be a blowout because I know what Rome's capable of, and I know what Rome was capable of last year. This was a game I said they would win by 20, and Rome ended up making it a one-score game. And for a long time there, it looked like Rome was probably going to win the game. But for me, this is the key, okay? They have to stop the pass. Both of these teams have to. And when you look at Rome last year, Aiden McPherson, who was their quarterback, threw for 225 yards. He single-handedly, I think, other than the refs, kept them in the game. I think that Carrollton really shot themselves in the foot a lot last year as well. So if Carrollton doesn't do that, this game really opens up. But again, when you have a freshman at quarterback, I mean, could you imagine? This is your first year in high school. You've only been in high school, a couple weeks maybe? This is your first start ever, and you're facing a top 25 team in the nation that, like, competed for a national title last year. Like, that's who you have to open up with. This kid's not big either. He's like 5'11", 6 feet, maybe even 5'10". Like, I would be scared to death. I'd be very intimidated, very scared. Tyler Boyd alone would probably just, like, make me, like, seize or something. I don't know. But they got to stop the pass. And again, last year, Rome was very successful in the passing game. Carrollton, to me, in the receiver room and in the defensive secondary, is superior than Rome. I think they're more superior than pretty much anybody. I do think that Carrollton has, like, the best offense heading into the season in the state. I would like to see an offense that is better, at least on paper. But even like going down, and I know 7-on-7s don't mean much, so I know I've kind of, it's kind of like going against my own word here, but the scrimmage in the 7-on-7, being able to do what they did down there in IMG and being able to do what they did in the scrimmage, like they just an offense that looks very, very, very dangerous. And again, when you have the number one running back in the class of 2029, the number one quarterback in the class of 2029, Quelly Fielder at offensive tackle, and many, many, many others like Kieris Miller, who's like maybe one of the most underrated tight ends in the state, that offense looks very dangerous. And the defense looks quite dangerous as well. Definitely a top 5 defense in the state. So they're going to have to stop the pass. And for Rome, I mean, let's be honest. You think Rome's secondary is going to be able to stop Key Miller or like CJ Cypher or like London Munoz or Darrell McFadden or any of these other guys? Because me personally, I don't think they will. And I don't think that they'll be able to really pass on. Number one, I don't even know how their offensive line is going to do against our front 7. And even if they do fine, I don't even know. Like, let me read this off to you. Their top receiver, Tylen Simpson, great player. He's 5'10", 140 pounds. 140 pounds. You think that when he lines up in front of Tyler Boyd, that he's going to be able to beat him more times than Tyler's going to beat him? Or even Jeremiah Arnu or A.D. Roseman or Aiden Lockett or any of these guys? Because I don't. And I don't think that, whether it's him or Christian Maxwell or Caden Waters or Cason Beasley or any of these other guys, I don't think it matters. And I think that if Carrollton shuts down the pass game and Rome has to they're like forced to run the ball, you're not going to be able to run on that front 7 of Carrollton. So it's over for you. And I think that if Carrollton can pass the ball, it's over. You let CJ Cypher just throw it to whoever he wants. I mean, it's over. You're not going to win. So that's the key to the game for me. Both of those teams have to stop the pass. I think whoever can do it more than the other is going to win. And for being honest, this is a game that I don't even know if I'm going to give a score prediction because I am calling it. But let's just say this one could get ugly. And I'm not going to say I feel sorry for them because I don't like Rome. I never liked Rome. I don't like Rome. They're a rival. I would love nothing more than to see like a 56-0 victory. So I don't think this one will be close. I wouldn't be surprised if it was, a 2-3 score game by the end of it, just because I know what Rome is and I know what Bill Stewart can be. And he's a defensive minded coach. So he's going to have a defense that's going to be somewhat decent. But for me, at the end of the day, Carrollton is just superior. They're a top 25 team in the nation. We're comparing, in my opinion, apples and oranges. And so Carrollton, I think if they can get out of their own way, I don't think, again, Rome's not the Rome of last year. And I draw back to kind of like the Grayson thing. A lot of people said after that game, Grayson ain't the same Grayson. And I agree. I think Rome's not the same Rome. They don't have the same coach. They lost a key player in their quarterback amongst other players. Their 2 receivers last year, both like 6'3", 6'4", graduated and went to Tech. So it's like there's a lot of it's a new Rome. It's a new Rome team. I don't think this one will be close though. Carrollton, I think from start to finish will be in control. And I hope so. By God, I hope so. But I'm not going to give a score prediction, but I do think Carrollton will win, and I don't think it'll be close. So that's it. We've covered all 7 games. And again, we have kind of a plethora. We have some games like Bowdon Bremen and Villarica Alexander, where I think it could get down to the wire. And then you have some games like Carrollton Rome and some of these other ones. Actually, I don't think any of these other ones are really blowouts. I mean, Haralson's kind of a blowout, but all these other ones are somewhat decently close. This is a season that there's, again, a lot of new and a lot of different ways, and I'm very excited. I think there's a lot of teams in this area that are good enough to compete and be in a Final Four, be in a state title game. And, again, we're very blessed to be in the region we are. And I really want everybody to make the playoffs. I know the playoff system's new. I really want everyone to make the playoffs like they did last year. And I really just want the best for everybody this season. And again, if you're on a Friday night, you don't know what to do, you don't have you're not necessarily a fan, or maybe you're new to the area, definitely go to these games. Find a game, go to a game, go support your community. You won't regret it. Friday nights in West Georgia area, I'm excited to get back. I mean, I really am. It's been a long off season. I cannot stress that enough. It's been so boring. But yeah, we're back. We're in full swing. The next time y'all see me, it'll be for the recap show. Hopefully all these teams will be in the win column. I know I didn't predict everybody to win, and there are some teams on here like Herd and Central and Bowdon Bremen who doesn't, one of those teams has to have a loss week 1. But hopefully when we come back, all these teams or most of these teams will be in the win column. And hopefully I'm right. Thank you for watching the West Georgia Gridiron Podcast. Make sure to follow or subscribe wherever you're watching. Make sure to turn on the notification bell so you'll never miss another episode, and make sure to share. Word of mouth is very important. So we'll see y'all back here for the recap show. I hope all these teams win. I really do. So thank you for joining us, and we'll see you on the next episode.